Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'm not going to read the summary actually because time is short. I can go straight forward into the topic which I'm going to talk about. It's about Kalam approach to Islam and science. I have been engaged in Kalam and especially in Daqiq al-Kalam for the last 25 years. This is beside my specialization in quantum cosmology and general relativity. In fact, Kalam is a very, very important part of the Islamic thought. It is a great legacy that was ignored for a long time. And the American philosopher William Lane Craig have said that probably no chapter in the history of cosmological argument is as significant or as universally ignored as that of the Arabic theologians and philosophers. Although we find in them the origin and development of two of the most important versions of cosmological argument, namely the argument from temporality and the argument from contingency, the contribution of these Islamic thinkers is virtually ignored in Western anthologies and books on the subject. Of course, William Craig actually revived one important principle of Kalam, and he put it as the Kalam cosmological argument. He published a book in 1979 about this, and since then he went into deeper studies about this topic, which is part of the Kalam, only small part of the Kalam. Even we Muslim, we don't know about Kalam much. We know what's called the Jalil al-Kalam, which I am going to explain, which has bad image actually among Muslims. Anyway, Mutakallimun were a group of Islamic theologians and thinkers. By the way, the whole story here is to give an example how traditional Muslims thought about science and religion. This is the reason why I'm going back about 900 years. So Mutakallimun were a group of Islamic theologians and thinkers. They appeared in the 8th century after AD and continued to have effect for a long time, actually. These theologians had their ideas about nature, not only about religion, but nature. In short, kalam in Arabic means discourse, speech or discourse, in short. This was exactly what happened in the Golden Age when there were free thinking, free discussions, which cannot be resumed even now, because we may be considered infidel. Philosophically, Kalam is a collection of concepts, assumptions, principles, problems that try to explain the relation between God and the physical world and man, actually, or you can say God and the physical world in accordance with the Islamic creed. Classically, Kalam forms the foundation, by the way, of jurisprudence of fiqh, the Sharia, the philosophical foundation for the Sharia. The logic and the principle they have devised formed the basis, usul, for the Islamic jurisprudence, which is fiqh. Nowadays we are talking about science and how can we reconcile science and religion, but we don't talk how to do that, actually. Because if we have our own views, personal views, we will not achieve anything. If it is a matter of presenting our own personal views, the religious clerics, the media, the public, they will not take it seriously. They will say these are views of Dr. Nidal and Altai and Usama, whatever. in fact, we should have a system which emerges from Islam, from the tradition of Islam. Now here we have Professor Nidal Qassoum trying to tackle the Ibn Rushd approach. I am trying to tackle the other approach of Mutakallimun, which is actually a rival for the Ibn Rushd approach. It's two different approaches. Kalam has two branches. Jalil al-Kalam, which deals with divinity, the divine attributes, etc. And Daqiq al-Kalam, which deals with physics of nature. The publicized, or the part which has been taken so much fame was the Jalil al-Kalam, unfortunately, which led to problems like, for example, the problem of creation of the Quran, مشكلة خلق القرآن, between the Mu'tazilite and the Fuqaha. As I said, I am going to actually to make it short. There were also the problem of the man's free will between the Mu'tazilite and the Ash'arites. In any case, I am not concerned with anything related to Jalil al-Kalam directly, or the questions of Jalil al-Kalam. Divinity, the paradise and hell, etc., how God punishes or tortures the unbelievers, etc. This is part of Jalil al-Kalam. Daqiq al-Kalam is something else, which is deals with the natural philosophy, creation and eternity of the world, question of causality, the question of space-time, atomism, etc. During my studies, I was able, actually, also I should mention that there are two main schools of Kalam, the Mu'tazilite and the Ash'arites. Until now, there are such schools, actually, although the Mu'tazilite had faded away, but the Ash'arites are very active, even, especially in Jordan. Among the Mu'tazilite, just to see the dates, actually, Wasil ibn Ata is considered the founder of the Mu'tazilite. He died in 748 AD, and then he had many followers. Found a whole school of thought which extended for about 4 centuries, until they were prevented from publicizing or discussing even their idea or writing books on their ideas by Al-Qadir Billah. Al-Qadir Billah prevented the Mu'tazilite and abandoned the Mu'tazilite thought and Ash'arite thought, by the way, and gave the stage to the Hanbalites. And many people now ask why we see science declining where is the golden age? Why we have declined science in Islamic world? In my opinion, it declined if you go back and trace after 700 after Hijri. And from that time, we can clearly spot that it was a victory for the Hanbalites. It's the Hanbalite school, the Hanbalite understanding of, it's not the Kalam understanding. Hanbalites are against Mutakallimun. It was the Hanbalite approach to Islam and science which blocked progress from 700 or somewhere in that region. I'm not going to give you the biographies or the dates, but the other school, the Ash'arite, was led by Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari, and this man died in 324 or 935 AD. This man actually established the Asharite approach. He was originally Mu'tazili, but then he break away from the Mu'tazilite. In any case, the two schools, in my opinion, I'm not a Mu'tazilite, I'm not Asharites, and some people do not like this. The Asharites in Jordan, they say Al-Ta'i, Basil Al-Ta'i is nowhere in Kalam because he is not Asharite, he is not Mu'tazilite. And I say that the Mu'tazilite and Asharite part of the history now. We should invent new things. We think a new approach, which could be partly Mu'tazilite, partly Asharites. Why we need Daqiq al-Kalam? We need Daqiq al-Kalam, in my opinion, to establish a firm base for reformation of Islamic thought. Unless we have a firm base emanating from Islam itself, we will be rejected. Nobody will accept us. They will always go to the Imam and say, is this correct or not? Same as your student happened to do. And we will be in a problem. They will say, what's his reference? ما هي المرجعية? What kind of reference? What kind of reference, I mean thinking, not in books. What kind of reference these people have? If we say kalam, then they have no kalam. Yeah, they have no kalam. Because they cannot deny that kalam was part of the original Islamic thinking. And that usul al-fiqh was based actually on kalam. So if they say that we don't accept kalam, we say you don't accept Abu Hanifa then. You don't accept al-Shafi'i. Ibn Hanbal, no. Ibn Hanbal was not a mutakallim, and he is from Rijal al-Hadith. But Abu Hanifa, most of the Islamic world, as you know, population of the Islam, are Hanafiya. And part of them is Shafi'i and Maliki, North Africa. So the three were actually subscribing to the Kalam schools. And they were originating some principles in the usul al-fiqh, which was taken from the Kalam. So when I say to any imam, my marji'iyya, my reference is Kalam, he has no Kalam. Now, let me go to the approach. In short, what's the difference between mutakallimun and philosophers? The difference is this, that mutakallimun start from revelations from the Quran, understand the Quran, and try to reflect on nature. Not interpret Quran as Dr. Adnan said, Professor Adnan, His Excellency, said that it's word by word or no, not that. It's to understand, to put the Islamic Quran or Islamic creed, al-Aqeedah al-Islami, in your background of thinking, and then you try to explain nature, physics, heat, quantum mechanics, whatever. You just put this, as I said, for example, when we come to the laws of nature and laws of physics and differentiating between the two, which is not very much differentiated in the West. In the West, they mix between the two. But in Islam, we have two different things. They start from God through reason to explain nature, or to understand, rather, nature. So they sometimes give explanations, which is a new argument, new theories they propose. While philosophers start from the world. Through reason, again they are rational, of course, to figure out or understand God. That's why the picture of God in the philosophers' view is not, do not agree with religions. See, for example, they allow for many gods. They allow for God who doesn't know about the details of things. They allow for God who do not interfere in some events and leave it for nature to do the job, etc., etc. They believe in nature. Well, through my studies over many years, I could deduce actually 5 principles of daqiq al-kalam, which some people now call the kalam physics. There are a few books which has been published in English. The most famous book is the Kalam Physical Theory, published by a Harvard scholar. He is An-Nur Dhannani, who was working under the supervision of Abd al-Hamid Sabra. The book was published in 1992, and it is a magnificent book, actually. It's a magnificent book. I have written a book about these principles, and it was published in Arabic in 2009. I hope this year we will see the 2nd edition of this book. It's called Daqiq al-Kalam, the Islamic Approach to Natural Philosophy, دقيق الكلام الرؤية الإسلامية لفلسفة الطبيعة. And lately we translated the book, or actually I have rewritten the book in English. And it will be published, as far as I understand, within the next 6 months in the United States. I also have written a book which will appear next month in the United States. It's printed in the United States, God, Nature, and the Cause, where there is a very good chapter about the Kalam in that book, God, Nature, and the Cause. The principles are 5 principles they have in Daqiq al-Kalam. Discreteness, atomism, that everything is atomized. Matter, time, space, motion, everything atomized, including time, by the way, which is not atomized in physics yet. The second one is temporality, that the world must have a beginning. And they said that when the time was, at that time, everything was saying, the universe has no beginning. The universe is eternal, the philosophical view. But Mutakallimun insisted that the universe has a beginning. And that's what Craig called the Kalam cosmological argument. The third principle is the continued creation. They believe that everything in the world is under continued recreation. So God has created the original creation, but at the same time, every atom, every system, every atom, every system, even if it's a composed system, it gets recreated billions of times a second. Every ana, actually, an. An is a very small part of the atomized time. And every an, God recreates the universe. Why? Because he wants to keep contact with his creation. And that is how the universe is sustained. Yeah. The fourth principle is the principle of the indeterminism, which is actually a result of the recreation. It is a sort, there's a very, very close connection between saying recreation and having indeterministic world. Because if you recreate the thing and you allow for any small tolerance, then you will have indeterminism. eventually. The principle of indeterminism, according to Mutakallimun, is very necessary actually to justify that the world is not run on its own and that there is no independent nature. There's always God behind it. This does not mean, as some Western scientists think, like, for example, Steven Weinberg and Lawrence Krauss. Steven Weinberg says, I am ready to believe in God if there will be suddenly a fiery sword will come and chop my head. This is on YouTube already. He said that in 2002 in the Spain discussion with John Polkinghorne. He thinks that if God exists, then the world should be run miraculously. Also, Lawrence Krauss, the famous cosmologist, Lawrence Krauss, say, I'm ready to believe in God if I look at the sky one evening and see the stars aligned to read, I am here. Yani, does God work in this way? He believes so. That's why he denies God. In that case, he's right. But it's not the way. God rules the world with laws. But these laws are not independent. Not independent. They have a very well-defined statements or formulas. There's a well-defined causality or causal relationships, but not deterministic causality. And that is the difference. Unfortunately, also the fifth principle is about space and time. The Mutakallimun said space and time are interwoven. You cannot separate space from time or time from space. Yes? And they are relative. It depends on your position. When you say above or below in space, it's relative to you. You are the reference. When you say before and after, then it's on the same footing. And actually, Al-Ghazali used in his book a very, very strange word, saying the time dimension. Time dimension. He said we should treat time on equal footing as space. And I think physicists knows that in our modern age it was Einstein who said that, not Al-Ghazali. In our modern age. But when you go back, you see exactly. And I had an argument actually with one colleague, and when he went back to the phrases, it's actually translated. The book of Al-Ghazali translated, Incoherence of the Philosophers. I'm not going to give examples from the Mutakallimun about motion, etc., short time, because I thought I have 45 minutes actually. But I should say that we have a lot to investigate, we have a lot to see from Daqiq al-Kalam, and I would give two examples. You know, nowadays, even Western scholars or scientists like Weinberg and like Neil Tyson, they blamed Al-Ghazali, Abu Hamid Al-Ghazali. This man, they put a picture of somebody and they say, this man is the responsible for the decline of science in the Islamic world. Abu Hamid Al-Ghazali. They have wrong ideas because there are some people who went and publicized or told them that it is Al-Ghazali who killed philosophy. Al-Ghazali who killed the scientific thinking. This is not true. This is not true. Al-Ghazali has a book, Tahafut al-Falasifa. Go and read it in details. And you will see that Al-Ghazali was discussing the origin and the creation of the, not the origin, sorry, the creation of the universe, whether it could be bigger or smaller. After a lengthy discussion, 2 pages actually, he arrived at the conclusion that there is no rational, not religious, forget about religion, no rational reason to say that the universe couldn't have been created larger or smaller. Thus, he's allowing for the expansion of the universe or the contraction of the universe. He didn't say which is which, actually, but he allowed. The irony is that Ibn Rushd comes after years and years after Al-Ghazali, and he says, this is not possible because the universe has a fixed size. It cannot be larger, can't be smaller. Now we know that science has endorsed Al-Ghazali's conjecture. Because some people think that Ibn Rushd is the image, is the icon of scientific thinking, and Al-Ghazali is the icon of the backward thinking and the wrong way of thinking. This is not true. Both of them has great things. Both of them. Ibn Rushd, for example, when he discussed atomism, he rejected Kalam atomism. Why? He said, if this is true, if things will become atomic, then فإن صناعة الهندسة ستكون صناعة العدد بعينها. And yes, sir, you are right. Indeed, when we turned matter into atoms, we discovered that everything should be described with numbers. We call them quantum numbers. So you are right. The geometry, we don't talk about the orbit of an electron in terms of spherical orbit, oval, or ellipsoidal, etc. We say P equal to 0, or P equal to 1, or P equal to 2, L equal to 0, L equal angular momentum quantum number defines for me geometry. So Ibn Rushd was great in this when he recognized that if we accept atomism, we have to accept that geometry will be converted into numerology. The second example, the sun. Al-Ghazali tells us in Tahafut al-Falasifa that the sun...
Your time is over.
Oh, I will finish soon. The sun is actually can go degenerating, and it may lose some of its mass. فإذا خرج منها جبل أو جبلان لم يكن ذلك ظاهرا للعيان لأن علم المناظر في وقتنا هذا هو يقول الغزالي يعرف بالتقريب. While again Ibn Rushd comes and he says, no, this is not true, or this cannot be true, because the sun is a ethereal body. It's all Greek philosophy, actually. He is expressing Greek philosophies and Greek ideas. And explicitly saying Aristotle would not accept this. While Aristotle is before Ibn Rushd hundreds and hundreds of years. In any case, when I come to causality, I want to say one thing. My investigation proves that mutakallimun accepted causal relationships, rejected, denied causal determinism. They considered nature indeterministic. In any case, I should finish actually because the time is over, and I'm sorry to take so much time from... In the end, I would say, where are we now? I would say that Daqiq al-Kalam can offer us better understanding of evolution, by the way. For example, Daqiq al-Kalam can offer us better understanding or explanation to the anthropic principle or the fine-tuning of the physical constants. Physical constants are fine-tuned because those blind laws of physics or nature are working, or laws of physics rather. It's because the blind laws of physics are working. So the creator had to make very fine tuning for these laws to act. So in the end, the watchmaker is not a blind. It's only that who couldn't see the maker, he said he's blind. Thank you.